Turning on my mic here. All right, calling to order the March 2023 meeting of the Municipal Authority. We just have returned from an executive session of the board to discuss litigation matters. I will do a roll call. So we have Louis Rosenthal, Tom Greco.
Yeah.
Paul Montefiore.
Here.
And Mr. Mackel.
Here.
All right, and Maria Kane here. All right, we're all here tonight. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to our first item tonight. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda from our last meeting? Which I guess I should have a date on that. Last meeting was.
I think
Oh,
that's approve this agenda.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Whatever. I'm telling you, I'm discombobulated tonight. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, which everybody I think has had an opportunity to review?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any public comment for agenda items only? And if so, please come up to the podium and state your name and your address.
My name is Mike Mahalo, and I am the president of Hunters Run Owners Association. 87 Hunters Run is my address. I haven't been to one of these meetings before, so is this the only point where I would be able to comment, or when the agenda item comes up and it's discussed, is there
You can make a comment, I think, when we have a motion on the floor.
Typically, we do our public comment on. I'm sorry. We do our public comment on agenda items now. Frequently, the board will, once they have the motion and they entertain discussion, they'll also entertain some additional public comment.
Okay. So will I be able to like raise my hand and say, can I comment on that or something like that?
You can ask us
Something
at
like
that
that.
time, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But if you have anything now that you want to present, now would
Okay,
be a
thank
good
you
time
very
to
much.
get the ball rolling on.
Okay, so I want to thank the members of the board for serving on the Municipal Authority Board. I know that serving on a community board is often a thankless job, doesn't get a lot of recognition, and we want to recognize that we do appreciate you working here. I'm here to address what we believe is a straightforward case of the Municipal Authority billing Hunters Run for sewer services that were not provided. As you know, we at Hunters Run have a water system which is prone to leaks. It's caused by breaks in the pipes carrying water to the homes. These breaks can be significant, resulting in the loss of thousands of gallons of water, for which we pay Aqua. Of course, the Municipal Authority bills based on Aqua's water meter, which means we pay even though the lost water went into the ground and not into the sewer system. Since this lost water never made it into the sewer system, it costs the Municipal Authority nothing. Delcora, for example, charges the Municipal Authority based on their measurement of flow coming into their system. Since this water never went through the Municipal Authority system, it never made its way to Delcora, there was zero impact on your costs. Now, that's why in the past, the previous board, Municipal Authority Board, recognized that Hunters Run was overcharged and agreed to fully reimburse us for all months where we could demonstrate the impact of the leaks. In 2020, that resulted in a refund covering a 5-month period. We have used the same methodology that the previous board used, and it was unanimously approved, and was considered a fair and equitable solution. Now, I realize that many of the board members here were not on the board at that time, but it is disconcerting to us that we have to readdress the issue simply because the makeup of the board has changed. It was suggested at last month's meeting that since you had already prepared your budget, that you were somehow going to be short if you provided us a refund. However, your budget was prepared with the assumption that there were no leaks at Hunter's Run. So the volume was already lower. So by getting the leaks, you've now had unbudgeted windfall in revenue that you did not anticipate. At the February meeting of your board, it was suggested that somehow Hunter's Run was benefiting at the expense of the Newtown Square, rest of the Newtown Square community. The exact opposite is happening. By charging Hunter's Run residents for water that didn't flow into the system, Hunter's Run residents are effectively subsidizing the rest of the Newtown Square community. At Hunter's Run, we have taken steps in the last year to improve our ability to identify spikes in water usage more quickly so that we can promptly address them. Previously, we had to wait until we got the monthly bill from our accountant, which told us how much Aqua was charging us. And then we would see that we must have had a leak. Now we put in a meter that we can look at weekly and see how much water may be going out or coming in rather. And this allows us to sometimes know in advance or quickly that a leak is happening. But leaks don't all of a sudden burst onto the scene. We'll have like a pinhole leak, and then slowly over time it gets larger as the water pressure eventually breaks the pipe and it gets wider, and then it gets large enough that we can recognize that there's a leak. And then we can start to invest our significant capital in repairing those leaks. So when we have a leak, we hire a company to search for it. And then once they find it, we then hire another company to come in and repair it. Now, in the last year, we searched for a leak, we repaired it, and then we realized the water usage was still abnormally high, indicating that there were additional leaks. So we rehired the search company, and then we rehired the company that dug up the pipes and repaired them. Ultimately, we repaired 4 leaks. That's why limiting our recovery time to 3 months, which was proposed last meeting, is kind of an arbitrary cutoff and doesn't recognize the difficulty we face in addressing leaks over a longer period of time. Now, I have to say, this is a problem that's not going to go away. We will undoubtedly have additional leaks, which we will approach the board for adjustment to our bills. We agree that establishing a policy for handling these situations is an appropriate step. But any proposed policy must recognize the overbilling and the results from a system that is measured at the input and must be fair and equitable to our residents. I'm sure you are frustrated as a board with having to deal with this request for a 3rd consecutive month. I respectfully request that you approve the original reimbursement request using the previous board's approved and equitable method. This is not charity, and this is not doing us a favor. Rather, this is nothing more than recognizing and rectifying a case of overbilling. Ultimately, the Hunter's Run board must answer to our residents and explain to them why the Municipal Authority Board believes that Hunter's Run residents should pay for services which they did not utilize. Thank you.
Anybody else? For public comment? Okay. Okay, can I have, we did that? All right, may I have a motion considering, a motion to approve the minutes from the February 21, 2023 meeting? Has everybody had a chance to review those? Can I have a motion? I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next we have the treasurer's report. Steve, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple quick things for you. Added to the agenda late this afternoon, and I apologize that was the case. were a couple reports on your bond and the dollars that are left, completing out 2022's bond report and then coming through January of 2022, which left you with roughly about 388,000. In light of tonight's action, that'll probably take you down into the range of I think you had about 2,500 last month. You got about a similar amount this month, or actually a little less than 2,000. So you subtract that from those numbers. It gives you an idea of what you have left in the bond dollars that are left. I would make note that we also got your bond fund cash projection. And in that report, not only do you see what we've spent each year, 2018, 19 through 22, but also what we spent in 2021 or 2023 so far. And based on that and what we have outstanding in contracts, we have a potential shortfall of about $750,000 between the bond money and what the project costs are going to be. We've known a little bit of that for some time, and we're going to hold back some dollars that we get in from the tap-in fees to help be able to cover and make up that difference, so that we'll be prepared to pay all the fees that we need to pay as we go forward. In light of what you did last month with passing the budget and putting in a bond debt service fee into your bill, you'll be in a position to be able to pay your bond payments as well as take care of this going forward. But we are watching that closely and hoping that number doesn't continue to creep up little by little. And there is a potential, with some bills that may not be complete to the dollar value that are on there. We just don't know yet, but that's what the contract value is. And so we have that on there. If the contracts aren't fulfilled for whatever reason, that may change.
And we'll add a line item in to account for the debt service fee that we'll begin collecting.
That'll be added in on your budget. It probably won't be added in on this because the debt service fee does not necessarily relate to what this gap is. I think you want to see this gap separately, but the debt service fee will be added on the on your monthly financial report so that you can see what you're actually collecting. And this is we're actually just sent the bills out. So we're starting to see those dollars come in, and we'll make sure you have a report in April. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Thank you.
I do not. Does anybody else?
Nope.
No.
Okay. All right, engineers report, and Dave Porter, do you have a report for us tonight?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do just a brief update on the sanitary sewer expansion project with regard to the Camelot service area and the old Masters pump station. Some good news. We met with contractors for the driveway construction and the electrical construction last week. We mobilized our survey crew to come out and do some stakeout for the easement, the driveway, give them grade stakes so they can construct the electric line and do some preliminary grading for the electric line construction. AP Construction will be doing the general work ahead of Ford Brothers Electric, who is one of the contractors on the sewer project. That work will likely begin as soon as we have a pre-construction meeting with the Delaware County Conservation District in relation to the NPDES permit, which I'm trying to get scheduled for Wednesday or Friday of this week. The electrical contract will come in connection with AP doing their grading work. They'll take about a week to 2 weeks to get the electrical install completed. They're anticipated to start their construction sometime the week of the 27th next week. And then at that point we'll be hoping we can get a driveway built at some point there. So some good news is we can get the electric line in and do some preliminary startup testing on the pump station and hopefully get some connections in. That's really it on the sewer project. And if the authority doesn't have any questions, I'll move on with the remainder of the report.
Please do, yes.
So we had, my office and one of our inspectors have met with Almeida and Hudak, who was the pump station contractor for the overall sewer project in relation to the KBX report or suggested remediation or repairs at the pump station. So most of the related repairs are with regard to the bioxide systems that have either not been fully completed or had been damaged due to being installed during, I guess, a winter month where they did not have the bioxide tanks fully filled with that liquid. So I'm working on getting Evoqua, who is the vendor for the bioxide, to get them out there with Lenai Electric and Almeida and Hudak, so we can have sort of a meeting of the minds to get that stuff squared away. The other minor items, one was for Lenai Electric with regard to a heater. I need to have them check some of the wiring on that heater at one of the pump stations. Ford Brothers owes us some labeling on one of our circuit breaker panels. But other than that, the items on KBX's list appear to be relatively minor, with the exception of the crane at the Ellis pump station. So upon arriving at the site, it looks like there is a small sinkhole next to the pad of the crane, between that pad and the wet well, which is causing the crane to kind of dip toward the wet well. So it's out of plumb probably by about 4 inches. There may be a way to level that out by adjusting the structural bolts around the bottom, but with it being out 4 inches, I'm fairly certain we're probably going to have to look at leveling that with some additional concrete work. So I have to talk to KBX and talk to some other vendors about what they might recommend for that repair. So I'm hoping to have some additional information for the authority by the next meeting. That's really it, other than we're in ongoing discussions with DEP with regard to Ellis Preserve, and they're planning efforts for the various stages of completing their commercial project. We have some additional survey work we're mobilizing to gather some information for the authority with regard to sanitary sewers on Westchester Pike in relation to the Dunwoody pump station discharge there. And we're working on some fat, oil, and grease research, so we can advise the authority with regard to modifications to the existing grease trap ordinance that's on the books, and hopefully get a fat, oil, and grease program started up in the township. So that concludes my engineer's report.
Any questions for Dave?
What does it cost to level the crane?
I'm not sure yet. There's a couple of different options. Certainly the least costly option would be adjusting the bolts, the bolt patterns around the flange at the bottom of the mast arm. Aside from that, we're probably looking at some additional structural concrete work, which I'm fairly certain will be more expensive than just leveling the mast arm. But I'll be working on getting some additional pricing for that for the next meeting.
And the direct purpose of the crane?
So this particular pump station, unlike the ones that we designed for the sewer project, has what's called submersible pumps. So those pumps and motors physically are dropped into the wet well. They require a large crane and mast arm to lift them out of the wet well. The stations that we designed have suction lift pumps where the pumps and motors sit above grade. And then just like a pipe goes down into the wet well, it's essentially a straw. So it sucks the water out and then pumps it out through the force main. The only thing that we need crane wise on ours is just to lift the sewage grinder out of the wet well, which is only about 400 pounds, 300 or 400 pounds. The pumps and motors at Ellis are probably over 1,000 pounds.
What's the time frame on figuring out what approach we're going to take?
Like I said, I'm working to try to get something for the authority for the next meeting and have a recommendation on how to proceed, at least give you a couple of different options on how to proceed and some cost with regard to that.
All right, anybody with any other questions? Okay. Right, thank you.
Sure.
Moving on to Operation Managers Report, Steve, do you have something for us?
Yes, the main thing I have is that the Finance Committee from the township has requested understanding of the municipal authority's ability as well as plan to repay the borrowing, the $33 million borrowing, and to explain why they would be concerned. If I could for just a moment, for those of you that weren't on the board at the time of the borrowing, you may not know this, but the township had to stand behind the bond and say that if the municipal authority, for whatever reason, couldn't make those payments, that the municipal authority or that the township would be responsible for those. And so they just want a kind of an update where we are, what we're doing to make sure that they're not going to have to be responsible. And so they would, and just so that you understand, they're taking a look at the total finances of the township long-term, making recommendations to the board. And this is one area that they're reviewing along with many others. But this has come up. So again, I stand in that kind of gap spot between being able to speak freely on your behalf and at the same time also being the township manager. And so you may choose that you would want one of you to come and discuss that with them versus necessarily having me do it just because of the fact that I cross over both sides. And so I might even recommend that you would send one of you to do that. But I did say I would do it if you all chose not to. But you may decide that it would be wise, particularly that someone come and do that at their next meeting, which is the third Wednesday of the month at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. So we can talk about that among ourselves.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
if you let me know one way or the other what you all decide so I can move forward.
Yeah. I mean, unless you guys want to talk about it now, I mean, unless Louis and Tom, if you wanted to go together and, have it as a joint thing, I'd be happy to go too, so that I'm there. I mean,
Okay.
Fine. I wouldn't, send you over there without all of us being represented.
Next month.
I would make note it's the 19th, April 19th.
Yeah, I think I'm good on that day. Yes. You're gonna be gone, okay. Okay, we can firm that up, but Louis, if it's just you or, I don't know if you would like to attend, because I think you're jumping into a lot of the financial parts of this as well.
I'm happy to.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. All righty, okay, moving on. We'll
Can I
get-
just, before we move off the operations manager
Sure.
report, it would really be helpful if we could get everything that's in the agenda packet
Yes,
earlier.
I apologize. That was my fault.
It was, I just think it would be, even if we have to just cut it off and includes the engineer's report, and it would be great not to get it at 4:30 on a Friday for a Monday meeting, but maybe 9 a.m. on Friday. Just give me
Yeah,
a business
the
day.
one that's harder to do that with is the checks, because usually we're cutting those on Friday.
I'm okay with
But if-
not having the check register.
Yeah, but we can at least try to get you most of your agenda packet ahead of time.
I have to say, I would appreciate that as well. Okay, moving on then,
Speaking of check register.
speaking of check registers, moving on to the bills, consider approving the bills on check register dated March 2023, totaling $73,333.63. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Consider approving payments from the bond associated with 537 Public Sewer Project build out, $231.25 to Herbert MacCombie Engineers for Part 2 permit work associated with the Ashford service area. $1,106.25 to Herbert MacCombie Engineers for Part 2 permit work associated with the Camelot service area. $126 to Murphy Madron for professional services associated with the Camelot surface area. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. All right, consider ratifying a debt service payment totaling $1,071,315.26 for the Guaranteed Sewer Revenue Bond Series 2018. Do I have a motion?
What, can we clarify which payment this is for, which date?
It was a March 1 due date that we had to get the money out in February.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? I'll second it. Any questions or comments on that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to new business. Authorization of check signatures and bank depositories. Steve?
So, I became aware that in the changeover from having Mark Kay on board, we used to be your accounts, that you needed to have another signature. In your past, it's been your chair, your vice chair, treasurer. And that's what you wish to do. Vote to have those as your signature. We have signature cards ready.
Okay, I mean, we can vote on that then, so it would be myself, Louis, and Tom, are you? Okay.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I realized I had my mic off. I
Oh,
don't know, just in case anybody's listening afterwards, I would just say that became aware that the signatures, we did not have a full slate of signatures. And so this would be giving you a full slate of signatures. And in the past, it's been your chair, your vice chair, and your treasurer.
all right, I don't think we need a motion on that, or do we?
I think you do.
Okay, we do.
I think you
Okay.
do.
Okay, so I'll make the motion authorizing the chair, vice chair, and treasurer to complete check signatures and bank depositories as required. I'll make the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, possible action item on a second meter reading fee in the amount of $6.50 per quarter. Is that the accurate amount?
That is.
Okay. One. Okay. So this does coincide. Did we have a policy on this, the second meter reading, or there was a letter, I think?
There was a letter.
I just wanted to make sure that that letter because there wasn't a fee, that letter that we approved, or I don't even know that we certainly reviewed it.
It would
Mike?
probably not go in effect until your second quarterly reading, only because we just finished the first quarterly reading. So it
Okay.
would go into effect the second quarterly reading.
Just it
And
didn't get picked up.
And we would make sure that it was, we'll make sure that it's properly communicated to those who
I do.
have that
Yeah.
during this quarter, so that when it comes to the next quarter, they know ahead of time.
It just
that's gonna
seems to
be-
me that we did do a lot of work on that letter to
We
clean
did.
that up. And I would like that letter to include this fee in there,
Yep,
because there wasn't an approved fee for
Yep.
that. So that should be in there as well. That, you know. That they, you know, and that should be part of the prerequisites too, you know, as far as, you know. fulfilling their obligations under that second meter would be to have, be up to date on their fees, right?
Yep,
So just as a point of clarification, I think it's last month you approved the resolution with a fee schedule.
Okay, yes.
And we're adding this fee schedule. So my recommendation to Steve was to just reapprove the whole fee schedule with this in it. So this is going to be in the form of a resolution when you make a motion. And I think you can phrase it as resolution to approve the fee schedule, including the $6.50 fee. And we'll get into the minutes up.
So, we'll make that motion now to approve a resolution approving the fee schedule to include a second meter reading fee in the amount of $6.50
A quarter.
per quarter,
A quarter.
beginning with the second, do we want to say beginning with the second quarterly bill?
yeah, I would do that, just so it's on the record.
Adding to my motion, beginning with the second quarterly billing. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
You? Any questions or comments on that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on, consider approving a refund to Hunter's Run HOA due to water leakage, ongoing water leakage, more water leakage between June and November of 2022.
Madam Chair, as I've done in the past, I just would make note, I live in Hunter's Run, so I will not be participating in any of the discussion.
I think maybe you ought to leave the room.
That's
I
fine,
mean,
I can do that.
As a member of the public, maybe you should just leave it.
I'll leave it, I
yeah,
leave
leave
it
the
down.
desk. I mean,
I also would make note, just for the record, that my wife is on the Hunter's Run board.
well, that's the other reason. I think, yeah, joining the public,
Yep.
Steve, might be a good idea. Just for this. Oh, God. Okay. Now that Hunter's Run is well represented, we can move on to this. Is there anyone who, we've had some information presented in our packet, information that was provided by Hunter's Run, giving some calculations. And thank you for your presentation. I thought that was really well done and gave us some history too. And maybe that's something we should have looked at before too, is like this ongoing, not only have there been ongoing leaks, but they've been presenting us the information, it seems like, on a regular basis and then asking for the refunds. But just so you know, you guys are getting caught up in what we're trying to do is establish a policy so that when a refund request comes in, that we manage it via the policy and in coordination with the policy. So we've gotten held up a little bit, unfortunately, with our refund policy, but I would say next month we'll probably have it in place. In the meantime, we'd rather not delay your request, and I'd like to, review with the board here the options that have been presented to us. Steve, you want to give us the three, I think, that we have? I mean, it would be just summarize directly what's been requested of Hunter's Run, which was summarized very nicely from Mike Mahalo tonight. And then I think you gave us a couple scenarios as well that we had requested. So
I'm going to begin with the numbers that Mr. Young had provided. So he revised his request using December, January, and February of this year. And it kind of covers a 6-month period of the leak. So the total amount that he requested in refund is $12,539.12. So last month, the authority had given me direction to base a leak period off of 3 months. And Mr. Young had requested those months be June, July, and August of 2022. So I have two different calculation sets here. One compares that to June, July, and August of 2021. And the other compares it to December, January, and February, which are the updated numbers from this year. So referring to the previous 3 months, this previous year, the same months, The difference in dollars would be $5,856.97. And you would also ask me to split the difference, so that number would be $2,928.48. And then referring to the updated usage numbers of December, January, and February, the difference would be $8,248.88. And splitting that difference would get you $4,124.44. So those are our updated calculations, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Steve, could you explain, I mean, based on your review of what was presented by Hunter's Run, how they got to this, like the usage of the daily rate, for 188 days?
So,
It just seems to me 188 days is way more than 3 months.
right, so that's 6 months worth of data that he is
Okay,
requesting for the refund.
right, but how many days they come up with a daily rate? And then how many days are we multiplying that by? So do you see what I'm saying? Or is that just, I
Right,
mean, it
so.
looks like to me they're looking for 6 months of a refund based on a daily rate.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Okay. All right, so does anybody have any questions?
I don't have questions.
No,
I have comments.
you have, okay, do you have any comments?
I do have comments. And so, and they partly address Mr. Mahalo's presentation, which I thought was certainly representing the HOA very well. And just so that we're clear on what our wiggle room, maneuverability as a board is and our responsibilities. Our operations manager mentioned the guarantee that sort of backstops the bond, but we have a single source of revenue that comes in, and we have multiple sources of expenses. The only thing that's under our control are our engineer and our solicitor. I mean, everything else is sort of dictated to us. And so it maybe differ a little bit with Mr. Mahalo. When we go through a budgeting process, we have an aggregate expense number that we have to cover. We divide that by aggregate consumption and we come up with a rate. So if we actually adjust aggregate consumption, or in this case, sewage flow, our only proxy really is water usage. To stay at a balanced budget, one would have to raise the rate. So if 50% of the sewage customers, we adjusted to 0, the rate would have to go and double to maintain break even. So I just want to be clear, we're not Aqua, we don't have retained earnings. We don't have a reserve to make these adjustments. So whether we decide as a board to adjust $12,000, $1,200, or $12, it does add to a deficit. Now, maybe using water consumption is not the best way to predict sewage flow, which is why some people install second meters, but it's the only proxy we have right now. And so I just want to clarify that whatever we decide to do, it is deficit inducing, because billable widgets times rate equals the number. And so if you lower the billable widgets to maintain equilibrium, you have to raise the rate. So I just clarify that it doesn't solve certainly the HOA's issue. And to some extent, I think it highlights the flaw, if you will, in our structure. I think the term is detrimental reliance on numbers. And unfortunately, we don't have a better way to meter sewage flow. In fact, if maybe if we redid the sewer system all over again, we'd install sewage meters in everybody's house, or maybe some board at some point in time will order sewage meters be installed, but that's where we are. I'm not offering comment on whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, but whatever we do in terms of a refund will induce a deficit, and we'll pick up that deficit next year when we raise the rates again. Unless we have massive savings in engineering costs and legal costs, which but I just want to
Yeah.
be clear on how the numbers balance out. My view on how the numbers balance out. So that's just a comment.
So putting it in more layman's terms, you're saying that based on Aqua's numbers, that's the only thing we can rely on.
In this instance, yes.
Right. Since they're an HOA and they can't put a meter at every single unit, so we would not be able to determine what,
Yeah.
what the actual usage was. But I was wondering, maybe, Dave, you can answer this. Because he did, I thought, made a good point on us being a conveyance system, and anything that doesn't go through Delcora, did those numbers did the gallons that leak get calculated in any way based on what we have to pay Delcora for?
No.
Okay. So I see this disconnect
Yeah, no, it's
Your
it's a
explanation.
dilemma. It's a dilemma.
and the explanation.
No, I
that
agree
was-
100%.
That was,
Because Delcora, actually, our billing comes from the meters that feed RMH, RHM, and the meters that feed CDCA. And those are real sewage flow meters. And so we aggregate those two numbers, come up with a total we gotta pay plus debt service and everything else. And we divide it by whatever number Aqua, our projections on Aqua billing, and that's how we come up with a rate, with slight adjustments. That it is a dilemma. So this is something that we began the process last month, adopting the budget and putting in increments for reserve. But we have to remind ourselves as time goes on, including when we set the budget next year, we have to raise the rates or add in an amount to provide a cushion
for these types of.
for these
services.
types of situations that sort of complies with the policy that we'll ultimately adopt.
Mhm.
It's you're billing for electricity by estimating gas usage. One has some connection with the other.
There was one other thing that I thought was important too, that was said, was that they are speeding up their time in when they are able to determine that there's a leak. But that doesn't mean that it's not still leaking. You know what I'm saying? So that we're not getting to we're not at all resolving the problem of the need for ongoing credits. We're just getting us the.
That's what our
It would be-
policy is supposed to address. Because of this, in this case, it's detrimental, but our only reliance, our only revenue point comes from Aqua.
Yeah.
And if Aqua called us up today and said, by the way, we're off a digit and everything is got to be, divided by 10, we're in a world of hurt. That's not going to happen, but if Aqua came back and said, oh, by the way, we misbilled the past year for this HOA in this part of town.
Yeah. And my
That's-
concern is when, the refund that we give them, or should we give them one tonight, for me would be it's going to impact how I'm looking at our policy and the future requests,
Clearly.
because, I think what this board doesn't want to do is put ourselves in a position where we are condoning any homeowners association or any community group of homes or even single homes where they are led to believe that they can just, it's our policy that you just keep coming in for refunds. I mean, it's supposed to be a kind of, extraordinary circumstance type of a thing,
Unless we just raise the rates by 20% and put that amount in a reserve.
Yeah.
I mean, that you would have adequate that's what Aqua does. I mean, they charge a profit, and when they make billing adjustments, they just take it out of their.
But do we do it just for homeowners associations with a history of leaking? Not for everybody. I'm just saying that if there's, we now know there's one homeowners association in our community that has regular leaking that doesn't get into our system. Is there a way to factor this in so that we're not? I think it's ridiculous that we would have you guys come back every 3 months or 6 months.
I think if we adopt a policy that could cover it.
Yeah.
That said, they've probably had the leak detection squad out a dozen times in the past year, maybe, or it's.
Well, let's just wait till everybody has said their share up here and then we'll.
They're solving their issue, which indirectly, if we approve a refund, helps to solve our issue in the long run. I would hope that we have established a period of time at which, for lack of a better term, speak now or forever hold your peace kind of thing in a challenge window or whatever you want to call it.
That's definitely part of the policy.
That's in the draft policy you have now. Certainly, there's no special hunters run clause in the draft you have before you now. We could examine whether you could create a class of user that's homeowners associations and have a different rate for, because I don't know if this is the only homeowners association that's a client as opposed to the members of the association. So that's something we could explore if you want, and then that wouldn't affect the refund policy because you'd have it built in, or it may, I guess, depending on the mechanics of everything we may be.
Okay. Any comments from anybody else on the board? Just based on what information we've been given. Okay, I'll give you guys just one person to come up and, is that a problem? For the homeowners association?
It's reasonable.
Okay.
If the request would be no.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, do you collectively have information for us based on what we've said?
Just one point, maybe to alleviate, take it off your mind. We are probably one of the only, or maybe one or two other homeowners associations. We get bulk water. Many, almost all of the other associations, the individual homeowners have their own water meter. And so the association as a whole would not be showing up. It's really unique to almost unique to us that we have the bulk water.
That is unique, and that's what confused us a lot during this process, is that there wasn't a way to meter it.
Right.
So.
And the only other comment, and I have no clue what your policy might be, but it would have to be a situation for us that maybe we could notify you that, hey, we're having a leak, but once it's fixed, of course, it will take us as many months as you deem fit to determine that the usage really has gone down so that you have a basis to look at it. So it's not like as soon as the leak is fixed, we could, or you could calculate, what refund we might even be thinking about.
Might have to be like I'm thinking a notification requirement for them, which would have to be unique. So it's different than a homeowner.
Yeah. There is a solution to this problem that's even my lawyer brain can think of, without any science background whatsoever. And that's to have water meters coming into each house, right? Just because you have bulk water doesn't mean you can't meter the water into the house. And then we don't have this exercise because the leaks wouldn't affect the individual homeowners. We could build a home on this.
Yeah, I mentioned that I think when we discussed this the last time, and it was just discussed as not being feasible. but-
It just took me a month to catch up to you,
Yeah.
Maria.
I'm sorry, but But they're avoiding that issue because they don't want to put a meter at every unit. I think there's 63 units over there. 66 units. Yeah. So in other words, it could fall within our, then it would work with our policy.
The water going into. Or it gets.
I think the interesting part of that is that there's one meter basically that Aqua reads, right? That would be bulk, and then the other meter would be individual.
I guess part of the question on that would be, would Aqua agree to read each individual meter? So they're accustomed to coming out and
We'd
just
have
reading.
to have a way.
Right.
And this might be one of those situations where we allow them to do kind of the archaic process of sending us the.
So if I could just add a little bit to that little discussion there. My understanding is that we did approach Aqua sometime in the past with that concept, but that would mean that Aqua would then be taking responsibility for all these pipes that spring leaks. Because if there are leaks, then the water's going to be going into the ground and Aqua is not going to get paid for that water because we're going to meter it. You would be metering it at the house, right?
Yeah, but we'd only be metering the outflow. The
Well, it would
inflow is
help,
gonna be
it would
metered.
help the municipal authority, but it would hurt Aqua. Because Aqua is now responsible for all these leaking pipes and they're not getting paid for that.
Aqua could still meter the one bulk meter and then the other 76 individual.
But
and
then
take-
who are they gonna charge?
Take the delta, all the HOA.
So we're back where we were.
Well, no, you're.
But it helps
you're
our
not-
You're not
you
back
are
where you were,
I guess.
right,
You're not-
yes.
Yeah.
Right,
But there's a cost to putting in meters and then reading those meters every month. But
Yeah, and I'm just thinking long-term solution. I think that makes the most sense here. I mean, really, because I mean, with this board, with the way we're trying, I mean, we got a larger system to operate and we're trying to make it fair to everybody so that everybody operates under one set of rules. And
It is-
again, while we may, we want to deal with your refund request tonight, moving forward, I think everybody's on the same page that we don't want this kind of submit your numbers and please give you a refund. I mean, it's just not gonna, I don't think that's where we're going with this. It's gonna be in compliance with our policy. And I think the best bet would be to get the meters. And you could send in the readings
Or
quarterly.
we establish a significant, I don't know, whatever that number is, reserve. So that your precision comes after the fact. But it's an unknown level of precision that you'd need cash in the bank to actually process refunds. I mean, that's, if there was $1 million
Well,
sitting in
you're just looking at it from the financial side. And
that is,
which I think is
Exactly.
really important.
Yeah.
But, from the practical side,
right.
right? So,
If I could make one more comment, so if I understand Mr. Rosenthal, you were taking it from kind of a budgeting issue in that, you expect a certain amount of water flow and you set your rates. So in 2021, rates were set for 2022. And in 2022, you were expecting a certain amount of revenue, you called it, right? But that, when you set that budget, you didn't include thousands of gallons of water that were going to be charged to Hunter's Run because of leaks. So you actually, and I'm just asking if you look at it, that you actually got a kind of a windfall in 2022 because you got revenue that you didn't anticipate. Now in 2023, we're coming for a refund, which is something else you didn't anticipate. So it's kind of a budgeting issue.
If Hunter's Run accounted for 80% of total billable water or sewage for the sewage system, yes, you're correct. But in the scheme of things, it's not. So it averages out. These are, big numbers, lots of gallons. So
But
if there's a windfall there, there's been leakage someplace else.
But isn't that the other side of the argument that you're kind of making, that when we come for a refund, it's a big number? But I'm saying when you got a windfall.
Oh, I'm not
you're
saying it's a big
small.
number. I'm not, it's a number. I mean, it in the world of the way the budget is structured for the municipal authority, there is really no leeway the way the municipal authority has structured itself over time. And I think that's what we were starting to address with the budget that we adopted last month. And, if we approve a refund, whatever that number is, it just creates a deficit for us next year, and then we'll just account for it. And we can have an aggregate number of deficits for all of these other things that we have to refund, which, does it get you closer to accuracy? Yeah, it does. The stark reality is we've never really had a factor for revenue loss, if you will, or a billing reversal. We're not structured like a real, sort of for-profit entity like Aqua is. Aqua adds a factor in, a loss factor, and that's how they bill people. And then when they have an error, they hit their retained earnings before they pay out all of their bonuses to execs and stuff like that. So I'm not making light of it, but and I'm not actually arguing with you. I'm just trying to communicate fiscally where we are, and we're trying to address this. And if we approve a refund tonight, it will have an impact in aggregate when we do the budget next year, just because this is what we thought we were going to get.
And Aqua's getting paid for this water.
Well, that's the other thing,
So
they're paying
Aqua gets paid,
for water
so
that
you're
they're not
paying-
using.
So you're paying for water you're not using.
Yeah.
And, that's just the way it works. It stinks.
Anyhow,
Not a good situation. Okay, does anybody want to make a motion on this refund? Or have any, do they want me to make a motion? I mean, I could make a motion to split the difference on the requested $12,168.82. That the HOA has requested. Do I have a second? So 1/2 of $12,168.82.
Can I address that?
Not yet, no. We could vote on it and then. No, doesn't sound like we have a second, so the motion dies. Does anybody want to make another motion? I'm looking at it from the perspective of they're looking for 6 months, right? So we did ours based on 3 months, so. So that would be 3 months of effectively. Because their number's looking for,
well, I'm confused on which sheet you're looking at.
this one is the one that they. That's what,
Mr. Mahal, you'll be able to speak when there's a motion and a second.
okay,
Yeah, it's
not hearing, that motion having died, I will make another motion. I'll make a motion to refund the requested $12,168.82. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Any questions or comments?
I do. Again, I'm just gonna, now that the motion's on the floor. And to some extent, I'm addressing it to the four of us, the five of us. That, we need to be serious about adopting a policy that works for all of the customers of the authority. And maintains sort of the fiscal sanity of the authority and understanding that we've got a less than perfect revenue recognition capability. So that's a comment I would just love to be captured in the record before we cast that vote. And I would say that, we have to have the policy next meeting.
Could I add to that, Louis?
Absolutely.
I'm just also in that we are not Aqua and that, we do, bill, not only, bill, but budget and operate based on, the amount of water that, flows into this, from Aqua. So, I mean, that's just the way it is. And we're a small municipal authority. So my recommendation would be that this homeowners association strongly consider getting meters for each individual unit. And we will work with you in making sure that, we can give you the full benefit of the refunds that I think you're going to be looking for in the future. If that type of second meter system is put in place. If it's not put in place, then it's, it's good, yeah, it's not gonna operate as it has in the past, it seems, as far as refund requests, which is not a very efficient way to operate.
We have a motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that motion passes. Okay, well, certainly gave that a decent amount of time. Moving on, discussion and possible action, regarding municipal authority refund policy. We are tabling that. I don't think I need to do a motion to table or anything, so that's being tabled for next month. Everybody's gonna get a copy of that. It's a draft copy from Mike. And we'll have plenty of time to review it before the next meeting, so. And you can send us your comments, Tom, because I think Tom's gonna be in Italy next month, so. All right, any additional public comment? Anybody that didn't get a chance to speak and that I cut off? Oh, okay,
We got one.
round two.
I'll just say thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys. Thank you. All right, any items for the next agenda that, other than the tabled item for the municipal authority refund policy? Did we table anything else tonight?
I did think of one, from Dave. You were gonna check with KBX about getting us, what they do on a maintenance schedule. Or for a maintenance schedule on a normal routine basis.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, with that, the meeting is adjourned.